God reminds me of why it's important for some men to have a wife. And I'm one of them. And I do. I thank God for my wife. I just wanted her to hear that from me this morning, and because I really mean it too. Another thing come on my heart as we was riding in this morning is I'm not very good with words, so I'll try to put this together. Our wonder if Sunday school attendance is based on the same same method, or however you would say it, is our public school system attendance in school would be. Once you reach a certain grade, or once you get to a certain point, you graduate and you don't have to go back to school anymore, unless you plan on going to a higher degree of learning. And of course, Pastor Travis would be our professor if that were the case, So, but with that being said, now some of you guys have been in Sunday school class, I know, for 50 years, because I was a kid here, and some of them, so back when I was in school, people that stayed in school that long were usually flunkies. But I know that's not it, guys. I was just the ones that are here today. I know you love the Lord. You love to be in Sunday school, and I'm blessed with just the opportunity to even try to teach a little bit up here this morning and fill in for Brother Lamar. Pray for Brother Lamar. I pray for his speedy recovery too. I hope he's okay. And like I said, it's a blessing just to be asked to be able to stand here today and fill in for Brother Lamar while he's out sick with us. And I'm just going to carry on from where our young adult class is what we like to be called. We've been studying in Leviticus, and I think we've made it on over to about chapter 17 is where we'll start reading, so you can turn to that now. I'll kind of do a little yeah, that's where we'll start reading, is Leviticus 17. And then just to kind of get us back up to speed, Leviticus, where does it get its name, that book of the Bible? Of course, from the Levi and the son of Jacob, the tribe of Levi. Levi had a brother, Simeon, if you remember, and at the time Jacob was going to give his blessing to the brothers on his deathbed. If y'all remember, Levi and Simeon's blessing was kind of different than some of the other ones. Of course, Reuben's was a little odd too, but theirs was, he said they're going to be pretty much scattered in the future. They're when it come time to being in the promised land there, eventually they were going to be a scattered tribe. If you remember, Levi ended up not owning any land. What were they doing? Why did they not have land? It's because they were to work in the temple services, so they worked in designated areas. They lived in designated areas, so they didn't put roots down, so to say, in a certain tribal area that, like the other brothers, the other tribes did when they got to the promised land, So, and of course Simeon, his blessing was about the same as Levi's when Jacob gave it to him, and pretty much after, I think, the Babylonian captivity, they just kind of faded away. They never ended up being a tribe anymore. So, and when did all this occur in Leviticus? All right. I guess come to my mind, I was reading in Leviticus ever since we've left Egypt. It's been one big camping trip, if you think about it. And 40 years camping trip, if I'm right, wasn't it? A 40-year camping trip out in the wilderness. And that wilderness over there don't look like the wilderness I'm used to here in North Georgia and North Carolina and places like that. It's a whole different thing over there. And it's been a bumpy ride so far. And but during this 40-year camping trip, God has been with them. We can read in Exodus 13:21. No need to flip over there. I won't read it, but you can always go back to it. And God was with them, and how? He was a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. So God's been with them. And this book of Leviticus, God's speaking to Moses in this, and through that he's talking to the people. And the book of Leviticus, call for them to be holy because what we're going to read about. And God's not just going to put up with any behavior if he's going to be dwelling with these people, with his people. And he starts laying down, he's already given Moses the directions how to build the tabernacle. I call that the mobile worship center is what I'd like to call it. It's supposed to be central to the camp as they are moving to the promised land in this 40-year march. And so if God's going to be with them, he gives them these rules. And in this mobile worship center, he puts forth certain rules that has to be followed. And, it had to be built a certain way, and the certain person has to be the high priest. There's certain ways the sacrifices are to be done, and failure to do these things in the proper way at this point in time resulted in immediate death. If you remember Aaron and his 2 sons, that happens in the book of Leviticus. Things weren't done the way it was supposed to be. So in order for God to travel with them and be with them, they have got to be holy. This is God's message in this book of Leviticus, his call for them to be holy. Holy, to be set apart. They are to be different from who? Yeah, the people around them, the Canaanites, the Egyptians. They just left Egypt, and as we'll see here, they carried some of those people from that land with them too. It says that there was a mixed multitude that left Egypt on the way to Canaan. So he's got them with him. And so it's a call for them to be holy. And for a little New Testament commentary, you could go to Hebrews chapter 12 and 14. And it pretty much says, no holiness, no God. So you can take that, that's New Testament. That's New Testament commentary on what is happening here in the book of Leviticus. All right. And in Exodus, God gave instructions on how to build the central worship site, like we said. In Leviticus, God tells Moses how to operate the tabernacle. The priests are to be holy. The sacrificial processes are to be holy. Failure to do so could result in death. And in chapter 11, the people need to be holy. And that's where we studied about them. God says, for these people, for the tribe that's here in this nation, it's on this 40-year camping trip, they got to be holy, and they're either going to be clean or unclean in this process. And then God gives out special instructions here, law, if you want to call it that, on how to determine if they are clean or unclean. He gives pretty good instructions on it. And even to today's standards, when you look at a lot of this stuff that God laid out for them, it's pretty easy to see if somebody's clean or unclean. And then, God got a process which enables them through a procedure or however to be cleansed after being considered unclean. God tells them which animals are clean or unclean. So if you eat an animal of the unclean, that makes you unclean, and vice versa. Childbirth procedures, leprosy, and other ailments of the body are addressed in Leviticus on how God determines if these people are clean and unclean, and then the steps they have to do to get back clean, and that's to get back in line with God. So we can see these people on this 40-year camping trip, they got problems. They're going to have ailments. They're going to have these things that unclean in their lives. And that's what this sacrificial process is for, that God has given the law to these people. When they make these sacrifices, when they've done stuff wrong, it's the way to get things back right with God. They have to do this. And we also find out, I may be getting ahead of it, but in this we learned too, my class, that once a year on this Day of Atonement, the high priest would make a sacrifice for all of them. So God even gives them a way there. The high priest goes in for those people who's dropped the ball and probably hadn't made things right with God throughout the whole year. He gives the high priest a method there that once a year he goes in and he makes things right for the whole nation in there. And believe me, if the high priest don't do that right, he could die when he's in there. So he's got a certain way he's got to do it. So everything there revolves around God's message to them to be holy, do things in a holy way, to keep things right. All right. And then chapter 16, we learned That was the law of the Day of Atonement, most important day of the year to them at that time. It was also to make the sanctuary clean. I forgot that too. It had to be cleaned at that time too, and that's real important. You got the people getting made things right with them, but the place where they gather and worship God has got to be cleaned too. It can't be just a dump. It's got to be done a certain way. It cannot be taken lightly. It has to be, I'd like to say, polished and shined. It needs to look good. I mean, it's got to be clean. It can't be like the world. It can't be just like everything. Where God's going to dwell and meet the high priest there at that mercy seat, things has got to be right in there. So that's something else we learned in Leviticus. And this Day of Atonement too. Why? Think about it too. It was they needed a day to reflect. The whole day. Think about it. If you give them the whole day to reflect on the things that ain't been right in their lives, right there, their sin, they can seek forgiveness and be cleansed. They can get that on their heart right there. So that high priest made that intercession with God there to make that offering for them. So the whole nation could be clean. That was important because what do individuals make up? They make the whole nation. And the whole nation leads the direction where everybody's going there. So it's really important. Chapter 17, that's where we picked up. That's where I'm going to pick up. I'm going to start reading. I'm going to read verses 1 through 7, and then we'll see what we got here. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, and unto all the children of Israel, and say unto them, This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded, saying, What man soever there be of the house of Israel that killeth an ox or lamb or goat in the camp, or that killeth if out of the camp, and bringeth it not unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation to offer an offering unto the Lord before the tabernacle of the Lord, blood shall be imputed unto that man, imputed. And that is something that's undesirable done by that process. It's imputed at that man. It's not right unto that man. He hath shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among the people. Cut off, that's no light term there. That's destroyed or consumed. That's done away with. 5, to the end that the children of Israel may bring their sacrifices which they offer in the open field, even that they may bring them unto the Lord, unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, unto the priest, and offer them for peace offerings unto the Lord. And the priest shall sprinkle the blood upon the altar of the Lord of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and burn the fat for a sweet savor unto the Lord. And they shall no more offer their sacrifices, unto devils, after whom they have gone a whoring. This shall be a statute forever unto them throughout their generations. All right, and our little bit of commentary here that my Bible offers here, I wanted to read that to you. This verses 1 through 7. Any animal killed for food was to be brought to the tabernacle, where the blood and fat became a peace offering. Then the meat could be eaten. No hardship would be imposed on the people, because meat was not a part of the usual diet except during festivals. And the command was designed to keep them from offering the blood of animals slaughtered for food to devils, goat-like demons, popular pagan idols of that day. And the reason God put that was a real thing that had been going on. That is something, when they left Egypt, some of that might have been going on there, but even more so in this land that they were headed to, this Canaanite land. A lot of this stuff it's the way things were done, and God abhorred that, and he didn't want them to be doing that in the future then or in the future. All right? Now I'm going to read verses 8 and 9, chapter 17. And thou shalt say unto them, Whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or of the strangers which sojourn among them, that offered a offereth a burnt offering or sacrifice, and bringeth it not unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation to offer it unto the Lord, even that man shall be cut off from among his people. There we go, the cut off again. That's to be done away with. Strangers, just like I mentioned earlier, that was with them, that's that mixed multitude that left Egypt. So there was some different people, different beliefs in there, and that can cause problems. I think we can see that from here all the way to the point where they're hauled off in captivity to Babylon. They have a tendency, God's people, in this time, when they're around people of other types of religions or beliefs or whatever kind of worshiping they go on, it can influence them. It can cause problems, just like it caused problems for King Solomon. I'm sure all of y'all know King Solomon's problem, and that's when things really started going downhill for the nation of Israel. All right. Exodus 12:38. Let's see what we got there. It goes along with this verse. A little commentary. Exodus, 12:38. Exodus 12:38. Yeah, the mixed multitude. That's what, a mixed multitude went up also with them. Here's the Israelites as they're leaving Egypt, and flocks and herds and even the very much cattle. So even the Bible tells us there was a mixed multitude that left out of Egypt. That's why I wanted to put that in there. Numbers 11, 4 through 6. I'm going to read them to you right quick. Some more content. Numbers 11. Numbers chapter 11. Four through 6. It's the mixed multitude. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again and said, Who shall give us flesh to eat? We remember the fish which we did eat in Egypt freely, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There is nothing at all beside this manna before our eyes. And this is what happens. That's why, this is what's going on with this mixed multitude being here with them, that they're thinking back. They're forgetting about what God provided them, the manna, and they daydreaming and lusting after all this good stuff they left in Egypt. But what leaves their mind? The fact that they had been slaves in Egypt. You think that would reign first and foremost in anybody's mind. That, hey, I just left a life of servitude in Egypt. But here they are. They've done flip-flop back there. And lusting. The word lusting here, longing in a sick way. When you look it up in Strong's Concordance, that's what it means. They're lusting after this life they left in a sick way, bringing it up here in numbers like this. And, in opposite, one should be in that state after being a slave for all them years and living in that servitude down there, is I'd rather eat rocks than go back to Egypt, is the way it should be. But some of them wouldn't like that. They were spreading that out. Manna, of course, bread from God. When the campers first became hungry, the Israelites on their journey, they got hungry and God provided them something to eat. 17 verse 10. I think this is where I'm going to be in Leviticus. No need to flip back. I'm still in Leviticus. I'm just jumping back here to verse 10. And whatsoever man there be of the house of Israel, or the strangers that sojourn among you, that eateth any manner of blood, I will even set my face against that soul that eateth blood, and will cut him off from among his people. So the specifications that God just gave, that we just read in these verses, talking about this blood, it's backed up here in 17:10, and bear his iniquity, required to submit a sin offering because of being defiled by contact with an unclean animal. So this is that thing, they've been unclean, and that be cut off like that. Chapter 18, let's see, where did I get to? Flip my page. All right, I'm going to read verses. In chapter 17, back then, I'm going to read the verses. I didn't read verse 10. Let me get back. You can tell I don't do this very often. And whatsoever man, I read that, be of the house. Now I'm going to read 11.
For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls, for it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul. So the eating of the blood is not good. God don't like that process. And then we go on 12 through 19. Therefore I said unto the children of Israel, no soul of you shall eat blood, neither shall any stranger that sojourneth among you eat blood. And whatsoever man there be of the children of Israel, or of the strangers that sojourn among you, which hunteth and catcheth any beast or fowl that may be eaten, he shall even pour out the blood thereof, and cover it with dust. And every soul that eateth that which died of itself, or that which was torn with beast, whether it be one of your own country or a stranger, he shall both wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and be unclean until the even. Then shall he be clean. All right. 15 and 16. So we got to bear the iniquity and required to submit a sin offering because of being defiled by the unclean animal. Now I've got caught back up with my reading, with my writing here. So the process again, God lays out there for being exposed to the unclean animal, and the blood was bad for that. Now, starting chapter 18, God's standards for people. These are God's people, and I'm going to read verses 1 through 5, chapter 18. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, I am the Lord your God. After the doings of the land of Egypt, wherein ye dwelt, shall ye not do, and after the doings of the land of Canaan, whither I bring you, where I'm going to bring you, shall ye not do, neither shall ye walk in their ordinances. Ye shall do my judgments, and keep mine ordinances, to walk therein. I am the Lord your God. Ye shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, which if a man do, he shall live in them. I am the Lord. So God's telling him, don't do things the way they was done in Egypt, and you're not going to do things the way the Canaanites do it in the promised land where we're going. You're not to do it that way. God's laying it out there specifically. Egypt, okay, the things in Exodus 32, this is what happened in Egypt. This is the things that God's telling them not to do as was done in Egypt. If you remember, golden calf, where did that come from? That comes probably from Egypt, the young bull. They worship the young bull. That's a throwback to the life of Egypt. God wants to destroy them. Oh, yeah, I need to read this. I know what I was thinking here. Exodus 32. I'm going to go back to that right quick. I'll just read it for you, verses 1 through 4. It's a story you all know well. But when I was studying this, I went back and read it, and that's why I wrote it down here. And I don't mark my places like I should. It seems like I can find it easier when I'm sitting at my table studying. A little harder when I'm standing up here in front of y'all. But anyway, chapter 32, 1 through 4, I'm going to read it. I kind of know the gist of it, but I want to read it anyway because it's actually part of one of my favorite scenes in the old Ten Commandments movie. And I know it's not biblically correct, but I grew up watching that movie, and there's scenes of it that I still like. But anyway, 32, 1 through 4. Part of it I can see good. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron, and said unto him, Up, make us gods which shall go before us, for as this Moses, this man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. So, boy, they didn't give Moses long to be gone, and they was already looking for another route there. And Aaron said unto them, Break of the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool, after he made it a molten calf. And they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So this is the kind of stuff in the verses we just ran it, chapter 18, his verses 1 through 4. These are the things that God's telling them they're not to go back to be doing this kind of stuff. They can't be having these golden calf things. Of course, Moses goes on to intercede because before he even gets all the way down there, God's ready to destroy them. God knows what's going on with them to start with. And and then Moses gets mad. And that's where my scene of the Ten Commandments is. He comes down and he throws the Ten Commandments at the golden calf and smashes it, and it flies all to pieces. I can't help it, but I enjoy that. But Moses gets mad, and after he done talked God out of destroying them immediately, and then he asked the Levites, or he didn't ask he asked those be for the man of God or not, stand up or separate, whatever. Anyway, 3,000 men died that day. 3,000 Israelites or whoever was in that mixed multitude died that day because they chose not to be on the side of God. And so 3,000 were purged. Now I'm going to read verse 6 back in chapter 18. None of you shall approach to any that is near of kin to him to uncover their nakedness. I am the Lord. All right, so these are these laws concerning to people. First out, God starts out this 1 through 5, a pretty basic, should be pretty smart. No way to mess this up. Worship the one true God, no idols, no molten calves, nothing like they do in Egypt, nothing in Canaan where we're going. And now he's going to start listing some of these other laws or ordinances, rules for these people, God's people, that they should follow, the way that they should live, and things they should follow coming up here in the next few verses. And I'll try to keep them straight. This particular verse, verse 6, uncovered their nakedness. As you study and read that, you'll just see that's basically incest is what God is talking about, telling them not to be doing there. And then I'm going to read verses 7 through 18. The nakedness of I'm going to skip all these. This is a lot of reading. As this all deals with the verse 6, everything from 7 to 18, these verses just lays out specifically which people in the family that they're not supposed to be having this type of relationship with. I'm not going to read all them to you because you might fall asleep on me here. So I'm going to pick back up in verse 19. But God gives specifics here. Common sense, that for them to follow here, that they should know better. All right, now verse 19. Also thou shalt not approach unto a woman to uncover her nakedness as long as she is put apart from her uncleanness. There it is, no relationship in that. That's self-explanatory. During the cycle, read verse 20. Moreover, thou shalt not lie carnally with thy neighbor's wife to defile thyself with her. That's carnally, copulate. That's pretty standard. I shouldn't have to elaborate on that anymore. That's made pretty clear. All right, I'm going to read verse 21. And thou shalt not let any of thy seed pass through the fire to Molech. Neither shalt thou profane the name thy God. I am the Lord. This one's a little more, there's more commentary in the Bible on this specific one, as we can see here. This pass through the fire, human child sacrifice. I don't know how else to put it. That was what these people practiced where they're going, Canaan. Specifically, this Molech was associated with the Ammonite people, false god. And in this particular place here, I'd be better off just to go with it. We had a king, or they had a king in the future. Ahaz, I believe, is his name. In this particular place where this child sacrifice stuff goes on, as we read coming into the future, and this is a big thing. I think when you read these verses, that's why I took a minute and just kind of read some of this. I didn't want to just blow through it. But this Ahaz was a king of Judah. That'd be the southern kingdom. You had the northern kingdom, southern kingdom, and he got to the low point. And normally these kings. They were probably, these kings of Israel, they were probably educated better than everybody else in the country, And, they should know better, this kind of stuff. But we even seen what happens to Solomon, before that. But he even sacrificed one of his sons to Molech. That's how far away from God that nation ended up being. And when I look at that, what comes to my mind is, and I tried to figure out how way to write this, and I hope I got it right, but even the king's son, this particular person, in charge of everybody, who's probably, had his position there been more blessed by the presence of God just for him to even be there, number one. But he's got a son, but he has got so twisted that he thinks the value of his son's death by offering it to Molech is more valuable to his well-being, the king, because he's doing that supposedly for him and his nation by offering his son as a sacrifice. Think of how low that is, that a person gets to the point where they think that giving up their own son for their well-being is worth more than the value of that child. And to me, that's a big one. And you can read on in here. When this stuff starts happening, God gets fed up with it after a while, and it's no wonder why they're hauled off to Babylon. And then I was also reading here on the commentary. Of course, I wanted to bring it up too, but not to King Josiah. Not every king that come after Solomon, in them last days' reign. Josiah, he tried to straighten things out. He did for a while. He repairs the temple. I think he recovered the law. He renews the covenant with God, and he overall reformed the nation. But one of the big things is how it got tied into where I was reading this verse in Leviticus is he put a stop to that sick, evil practice of the child sacrifice down in the valley of Hinnom. And, that was one of the good things, that a good leader can do. He can make the changes that somebody needs to change. And King Josiah was the man for the task at the time. Of course, overall, the nation eventually goes back and they end up in Babylon. Now, chapter 22, chapter 18, verse 22. Thou shalt not lie with mankind, as with womankind is an abomination. Abomination, big word. Disgusting, to abhor. Regard with disgust or hatred. That's how God feels about that verse right there. And I think if we jump forward to chapter 20, verse 13, which I'm going to do right quick, and just see what else God thinks about this. If a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination, and they shall surely be put to death, their blood shall be upon them. That is God's instruction to his people at the time they were on that 40-year camping trip. That's what the good book says. That's what God's word says. However you want to say it, that's what it says. And that was their instruction as a people when they were on their 40-year camping trip. And 23 through 30. Let me see. I might get them in right quick. I better stop. Let me mark that right quick. I think they're ready for me to stop. But anyway, I'm going to say a quick prayer. Anybody got any questions? Or I can kind of maybe clear something up right quick if I misled or misdirected or misspoke. I can at least look it up and get back with you next week, because I'll be back next week, hopefully. Everybody good? Anyway, if you think of something that I may have done wrong, call me and I'll try to get it straightened out or get word to me, because I do make mistakes. But anyway, I'm going to dismiss us. Dear God, I thank you for this opportunity to be here today, Lord. Thank you for blessing me with this opportunity, Lord. Pray that you forgive me if I made mistakes, God. I just want to pray for everybody that's in here. I pray they have a good week, God. And as we stand here, I want to pray for our pastor, Lord, who brings a word to our church, God. I pray that you bless him, fill him with the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Kids coming?
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Already got the microphone down there.
Okay,
So it's ready for them.
microphone's already down
Yeah,
there.
it's already down there for them. Yeah.
Contact keeps messing with me.